Our first guest, former Trump campaign manager, the man who helped him win the White House in 2016, Corey Lewandowski. Corey is also co-author of the new book, Trump's Enemies. Corey, great to see you. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, Corey, I want to go to those comments there. This is just ridiculous at this point. The New York Times just throwing out anything, seeing if it sticks against the wall. Never Trump guys like Napolitano, who have been unhinged for 2 years since he won, out there making these ridiculous claims, these overgeneralizations of what obstruction could be. The American people, Corey, I can tell you, they're sick of it. I interface with them on this show, on social media. They are sick of it. I think this helps us going into 2020.
Well, look, what the president has been able to do over the last 3 years that he's been in office is to tell the American people just what the news system is really about. Most of the news is fake. They make up stories, and unfortunately, all the stories that they make up are always against the president.
Right.
Never do they make up stories that make the president look good. Don't forget, it was just a few weeks back where they said, if the president actually did this, it would be impeachment. They said the word impeachment 200 times. And then a few hours later, Bob Mueller's team actually came out and had to clarify the record and say the president never did this. And they said, well, we don't really want to talk about it anymore. Right. So the news business now is in the business of actually making the news and not reporting it. And there is no accountability whatsoever, except today. We see now that that poor kid from Covington, Kentucky is suing the Washington Post for $250 million. Let's see if that puts the media on red alert that they have to start reporting the news accurately.
Look, I don't think it will, Corey, because a lot of people missed this. But yesterday on Twitter, there was a Washington Post op-ed, but tweeted out from the Washington Post's Twitter feed, their verified Twitter account. It was talking about how Hitler used emergency declarations. Never mind that Obama did about a dozen of them. How Hitler used all these emergency declarations with a picture of President Trump walking down the steps of Air Force One. Disgraceful, egregious, unethical. They just keep on doing it. Doesn't seem like they care.
They don't care. And as a matter of fact, you and I both know that the 2020 election is not just about Donald Trump running against the Democrats. It's about Donald Trump running against the Democrats, the mainstream media, those who want to continue to disparage him and be pejorative towards him and have their own agenda, which we know 93% of the media coverage from the big three networks is negative towards this president. It's also about Donald Trump running against some of the Republicans who failed him in the first 2 years.
Yeah.
But the American people are smart, and I say it all the time. This president has pointed out what fake news is really about, and the American people now see it.
I could not agree more. That's absolutely true. And I've always said, look, he uses social media to throw the football to the American people over the heads of the mainstream media, and they're hysterical about that because no one else has ever done it to him. All right, let's talk about that decision to declare a national emergency to get more border wall funding. President says, and many legal scholars agree with him, that he has every right to make that decision. Let's listen here.
But the point is that we have to have a stoppage. Billions and billions of dollars of illicit things are pouring through our border. And, we talk about points of entry, and one of the things that we do have is a lot of money now for points of entry because everything was given. The money was given so much that you almost don't know what to do with it by Congress. But when it came to the wall, they wanted to hold back because it was politics. That's all it is.
Now, this comes as 16 states, Corey, are suing the Trump administration. And the president was right. They're led by New York and California, these liberal strongholds that have now become the general counsel of the Democratic agenda. But I agree with the president here wholeheartedly. Forget my support for him over the years. We have a crisis on our southern border. This false narrative, well, drugs only come through ports of entry, is ludicrous, right? That's where they're caught. We have no idea what's coming across that porous southern border.
And if you do, we'll negotiate in good faith. So they opened the government for 3 weeks. We saw that the Democrats, and specifically Nancy Pelosi, thought the value of American lives was exactly $1. That's what she was willing to give on the wall. But the president got $1.375 billion. And by declaring the national emergency, this is important to note that it's only the very end of the money, about the last $3.5 billion of the $8 billion that he'll have access to, that the national emergency is required for. 58 times a national emergency has been declared since Jimmy Carter. Never has anybody pushed back on it. Barack Obama used it. Bill Clinton used it 17 times, 6 of which are still in effect today. And the difference is Barack Obama declared a national emergency when 12 people died from swine flu. We've had hundreds of families, if not thousands, who've been maimed and murdered because of our porous southern border. There is no question this is a national emergency. And I think that the White House is on solid legal ground. And when this gets to the Supreme Court, they'll rule 9-0. The president has this authority.
Look, I happen to agree with you on that. And what infuriates me is when Democrats say things like, oh, my God, $3 billion can do so many things. Bill de Blasio is paying for the health care of illegal aliens in New York City. The bill is costing New York City and New York State taxpayers about $2 billion a year, Corey. They'll spend that in a city, but the Democrats don't want to spend it to protect the United States.
Well, just know this. In the last bill that we just passed, 40 times more money in that piece of legislation went to foreign aid than went to building our wall,
right.
The $1.75 billion, because 40 times more money went to foreign aid. So we care more about others than we do ourselves. This is why the president won. This is why he says it has to be America first. Not America alone, but America first. And let's build the wall so that we can determine who has the right and the privilege and the opportunity to come to our country legally, not somebody else.
All right, let's talk about something I know is close to your heart, and that's this field of Democratic candidates that are vying for that 2020 presidential nomination. Now, yesterday, the field grew by one more when it also ran from 2016. Bernie Sanders threw his hat in the ring. President had some very kind words for the senator. Let's listen.
Personally, I think he missed his time. But I like Bernie because he is one person that, on trade, he sort of would agree on trade. I'm being very tough on trade. He would tough on trade. The problem is he doesn't know what to do about it. We're doing something very spectacular on trade. But I wish Bernie well. It'll be interesting to see how he does. I think what happened to Bernie maybe was not so nice. I think he was taken advantage of. He ran great 4 years ago.
And Sanders, Democratic Socialist, of course, he raised $6 million in the first day of his campaign from more than 220,000 small donors. But here's the thing. I like what the president said there. I like that he's sort of enabling and encouraging Sanders to be a spoiler in this race. Sanders doesn't have any shot right here. I've always thought, well, I should say in the short term, that Joe Biden is the most viable. What do you think about this whole Sanders thing?
Look, I think you're right, and your premise is exactly spot on. Joe Biden, who is, at least many consider, a moderate Democrat, has no chance of securing the nomination because Bernie Sanders is now considered the moderate in the Democratic field. Literally the socialist from Vermont who honeymooned in the Soviet Union is the conservative, the moderate from the Democratic Party. Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, they are so far to the left that they can't win in middle America because they believe in the redistribution of wealth. Yeah. They believe the rich should pay for everybody else. They believe everything should be free to everybody. That's not how America was founded. And just think for 1 second. If Donald Trump would have honeymooned in the Soviet Union, what the media uproar would have been, right? But Bernie Sanders is the socialist, and he's considered the moderate. He can't win the election. He's too much in the middle for the Democrats, and we want more candidates in the race. I think the more the merrier.
Yeah, as do I. Listen, I'm glad you brought that up because we have a clip from Bernie Sanders back from 30 years ago praising socialism. Listen to this.
The word socialism does not frighten me, and I think it's probably fair to say that the Nicaraguan government is primarily a socialist government. You may recall way back in, 1961, they invaded Cuba, and everybody was totally convinced that Castro was the worst guy in the world, that all the Cuban people were going to rise up in rebellion against Fidel Castro. They had forgot that he educated their kids, gave them health care, totally transformed the society. But just because Ronald Reagan dislikes these people does not mean to say that the people in their own nations feel the same way.
You know, Corey, you said something really important and very accurate. He sounds, when you listen to those comments, that I know guys like you and I are shaking our heads, he sounds far more moderate than Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar. He's glorifying the Castros, still sounds more moderate than today's far left of the Democratic Party.
Well, he is. It's scary to think it, but he is. Look, I think Bernie Sanders at the end of the day wants jobs for the people of Vermont, which he represents. AOC doesn't want jobs for people in her district. Yeah. She just was against 25,000 new jobs coming in. And then she said, hey, the $3 billion that those jobs would have created, let's go spend that money somewhere else, except there are no jobs, right? And then they said, hey, let's have free health care for everybody. Let's have free education for everybody. I want Mitch McConnell to take that green initiative that they've outlined and make every incumbent in the U.S. Senate vote to oppose or support that piece of legislation, because the Democrats are saying one thing on paper and then they're going out and doing something different. They can't win in Iowa. They can't win in Wisconsin. They can't win in Pennsylvania. They are in for a rude awakening against President Donald Trump.
Yeah, and you're talking about the Amazon deal that AOC and the other leftists crushed. The midterm fiscal impacts of that deal would have been a positive $27 billion to New York City. She took it away. The midterm fiscal impact of 9/11 was $55 billion. So for her killing that deal, she hurt New York. 50% of the fiscal impact of 9/11 is what she caused in New York. I mean, it is just mind-blowing. All right, Corey, I have about a minute and a half left. I want to talk to you about former FBI Director Andrew McCabe. This guy's backpedaling all over the place. He tells 60 Minutes Rosenstein did want to invoke the 25th Amendment. Then he said he never did. Now he's claiming he never leaked info about Hillary Clinton email to the Times, even though he was criminally referred on 3 counts by the DOJ OIG for prosecution. What do you think happens here? I have a little bit of confidence now in the new Attorney General. I think he's being proactive. Do you think McCabe is charged?
Well, I hope that Bill Barr, now that he is sitting at the Justice Department, looks at that case with a fresh set of eyes and knows exactly what the rest of the American people know, is that he lied under oath 3 times. We call that perjury in the real world. He was fired from the FBI because he was a bad actor. We know that he leaked information. If you heard what McCabe said yesterday, he said, not only was I not a leak, but I was authorized, one of 2 people actually authorized to give information, which is a sad state of affairs because he's a dishonest guy. He said the FBI was a great institution. Then when they asked him why he was fired from the FBI, he said, well, it was kind of a misunderstanding. This guy is a bagman for the Clinton operation from day one. His wife got $750,000 when she ran for the state senate in Virginia. He is the worst of the worst. We write about him in our book, how the deep state is undermining the president. He is the deep state. Him, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, these guys were the ones who were responsible for the Russians trying to interfere with our election system in 2016. They lied about it. They used their badges and their guns to go after Americans, and they had better be held accountable. I want to see them kick his door down and drag him out with handcuffs on.
And you can get Corey Lewandowski's book, Trump's Enemies. He was just talking about it, and I promise you, I'm reading it now. It's a much better read than even Corey let on there. You can get it wherever books are sold. There's the cover. Corey Lewandowski, Trump 2016, campaign manager. Corey, always great to see you. Thanks.
Thank you.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest-growing cable news channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for breaking news and give us a thumbs up. If you like this video, then share it with your friends. Remember, you can watch Newsmax TV live on YouTube. Newsmax TV, real news for real people.